That's right, it's me, the one true TsuruRoach fan. Morning and afternoon, everyone. Before we start today's video, I just wanted to announce that due to, revenue reasons, the extremely premature Joe's Cafe Patreon page is now here. So, what is Patreon for all you rock dwellers in the audience? Essentially, Patreon is a service that allows you to go to your favourite creators, be they musicians, artists, or critics, and make pledges to donate to them and support their work. The site has recently been undergoing some changes to its revenue model, and so for the sake of future-proofing and security, the page is now up way earlier than I had anticipated for you to show your support if you'd like to see some more of my work. By just donating $1 for every full proper video project I upload to the channel, you'll become a Joe's Cafe regular, with your name appearing in the description and end card of every following video as thanks for your generosity. So, if you like my work and you'd like to support all my future endeavours, head to the link in the description and give my Patreon page a look. Even pledging a single dollar means a bunch to help the channel grow. Thanks very much, and let's get this thing started. And for an occasion such as this, there's only one way to start. God, that track's so good. I hope you lot are ready for another remaster review, aka Joe yelling at a thing nobody cares about, because after a few months of waiting, Cytus Alpha dropped on the Nintendo Switch eShop a few weeks ago. And I know quite a few of you are waiting on my thoughts and feelings, not only because this is my brand now and there's no escaping it, but also because it's my moral duty to hop on this bandwagon and inform y'all before reviews come out written by dipshits who don't know how to pronounce voice properly. And maybe the fact that if I don't review a rhythm game every few months, my hair falls out and I stomp around my backyard screaming the swears, but such is life. I'm a born musician, goddammit. If you're new here, allow me, the one true TsuruRoach fan, to bring you up to speed on what the actual hell this game is. Cytus Alpha is the Switch remaster of 2012's Cytus, a rhythm game released on iOS and Android by everyone's favourite unhealthy relationship TsuruRoach Games, a Taiwanese developer and now borderline AAA publisher known for their mobile titles, being the minds behind 2013's Demo, 2016's Voice, and the other games nobody cares about. Cytus of which being absolutely solid and up there in terms of my favourite games. It's notable for not only being TsuruRoach's very first game, but just generally being their most popular franchise, with little under 5 years of post-launch support, and attempting to be released and adapted on everything under the sun. I too am waiting for Cytus Alexa.
I said tap, you stupid fucking cunt.
Before Alpha's release on Nintendo Switch, we had Cytus Lambda, the PlayStation mobile port, which made the game playable on PS Vita until PS Mobile shut down. Cytus Omega, a full-on arcade release of the game in collaboration with Capcom before that also got canned, presumably because of setbacks with the development over a lengthy period of time, as well as the iOS and Android sequel to the game Cytus II, which I, have a bit of a reputation for. While I'd say Cytus II is still a brilliant game with one of the best soundtracks and still having the fun core Cytus gameplay, it also didn't keep me invested as long as the other games, mostly due to stability and performance issues, a progression system that's somehow grindier than the tree in Demo, and being severely bogged down by a messy and boring plot. Okay, I know I'm straying a lot here, but let me whine for a bit. Trying to be a rhythm game with an epic scope, detailed lore, and complex characters with twists, turns, and revelations, Cytus II has pacing that makes Kingdom Hearts look like a dash through the rhododendrons, and hell makes just about as much sense. But another thing it likes sharing with Kingdom Hearts, other than one of the characters just looking like Vanitas going through a phase, is most of its appeal just coming from pathological addiction over a large span of time rather than actual feats in its writing and directing. You know, that thing that actually makes a story good. TsuruRoach, while I still heavily appreciate elements like their soundtracks, mechanics, and level of care and scale, are unfortunately a very mixed bag with the quality of their games, mostly because of how they operate when it comes to monetization, trying to capitalize on their weakest areas like writing, and just generally biting off way more than they can chew. Because C2 launched on a cliffhanger and opted to sprinkle additional plot events and content through the post-launch support, kinda like an episodic adventure game. But unlike an episodic adventure game where you know it's episodic from the get-go, each episode is its own self-contained story with a beginning, middle, and end, and you're straight up shown before the game comes out that it's episodic, even with the ability to buy the entire game in advance, the game drip-feeds itself whenever it feels like it in an unspecified amount of patches, has the gall to sell expansion packs on the side with their own story, game content, and events that altogether cost more than your average AAA free-to-play game, and communicated basically none of this to the player, with zero disclosure about how many expansion packs were going to be added, how much the whole game was going to cost, or even as much as a roadmap. To the point of when the game's 2.0 update rolled around a full year after launch, and many players, myself included, expected it to wrap up the plot, the 2.0 patch notes unceremoniously announced it was the finale of a Season 1, meaning future updates were going to bring about a Season 2, and we were going to go through this scummy, messy, unfinished anti-consumer nightmare all over again. And I knew I had to get out fast before I got too attached, which is just a fucking disgusting way to look at a series I was excited for. Listen, I promise one day I'll be able to mention Cytus II without going on a tangent. What can I say? The tea's exceptionally good today. All you literally had to do was add a button to the main menu labeled Roadmap, and most of this problem would go away. But I already made a video on that, to the point of where the Cytus subreddit is sick of my shit, and I have an amazing collection of comments from people who are really good at setting off my bullshit detector. Seriously, making even slightly controversial videos is the best. Highly recommend.
Now I can see how edgy are you. If Rayark don't put the price you want, you'll not play it. You need to grow up, boy.
Yeah, that's how being a consumer works.
Yeah, it's not like they have to pay the artists that make the music and all.
What are investors and shareholders?
Wow, I'm sorry you hate paying money for quality content and supporting independent developers. I don't think you should knock the game's story though. This is no longer just a rhythm game. It's a play-along mystery. Rayark's first ARG.
That's by definition not what an ARG is. Please stop.
Ooh. You'll buy Guitar Hero for $60 but not $75 for a game with more content and depth than Guitar Hero. Bitch, please, dude. I don't even need to argue with your dumbass. Considering that only 139 other players are better than me at this game, I think it's pretty easy to disregard your bitching. How does it feel to waste all that time making a 28-minute video just to get shit on by a veteran player? I know why you're so frantic. It's because you know I'm not only a more informed Rayark customer, but also a more experienced one.
It's like he's competing to be the biggest shill.
Admit that your long-winded video was for naught. Admit that there are players in the upper echelon, like me, who will rape your logic and shit you out into a mud jug of disproportionate size.
Jesus fucking Christ. Hey, dude, listen. You're valid. I love you. Support me on Patreon.
So yeah, things have been kind of a sinking ship for me with the Cytus franchise because of its recent treatment, and mobile gaming in general being the most polarizing tumor I've seen in the industry that can even infect its diamonds in the rough. But fortunately, because they make actual video games sometimes, Rayark found it wise to port and remaster most of their library onto platforms meant for actual video games. There was the previously mentioned Cytus Lambda, as well as Demo the Last Recital on PS Vita, until the team decided to do even better than that by putting their games on platforms people actually buy games for and without their overbearing DLC, and as such Demo and Voice got Switch ports with all of their content and post-launch support. And it's here that we get to Cytus Alpha, a curious talking point as it's not only a remaster rather than a port, but it's also Rayark's priciest offering on Switch at 1 penny shy of £45, compared to Voice and Demo's 19 and 27 respectively. So here's a little deconstruction from yours truly if you've been holding off, you don't have a Switch just yet, or you've just stumbled in here by accident, you damn normie. I guess this means this video kinda doubles as a starter's guide on top of being a review, I don't know. Anyway, how is the circle clicking game? The other one that's actually fun to play. Starting off with the verdict, because I'm a conclusions first kind of guy, yes, Cytus Alpha is really damn good, no two ways about it. The original Cytus was already damn good to begin with, but I think this is not only the best entry in the series you can get right now, but it's become my main way of playing Cytus 1, even if it means playing on the Switch's titchy display. While there is a little bit to be desired with regards to new content and general refinements, and I can see the rather demanding price tag putting some off considering the alternatives, Cytus Alpha is yet another gold star in my book for Rayark's full console offerings and makes me more excited for the future projects like PS4's upcoming Demo Reborn, or as I like to call it, Demo 2 Truck-kun Boogaloo. There are some petty niggles the more you look at the whole thing, but Cytus 1 is basically a must-play rhythm game already, and it's been polished up into this lovely glowing package you need to at least try out at some point, mostly because there's jack shit else to play on the Switch other than Smash. But let's go over the basics. Cytus 1 actually has a plot which sets up the general bleak, oppressive, dystopian vibe of the game. The premise being that in the year 2130, advancements in science and technology have led to the creation of operators, androids that user can transfer their memories to in order to abandon their human bodies and live life eternally. Everyone was a little shaky with the idea at first, but luckily a deadly virus came along to wipe out all of mankind, so everyone who was still alive got themselves an operator anyway. Capitalism always wins, kids! Unfortunately, operators have a limited storage space because nobody thought to buy more Seagates before the unexpected fall of humanity, which means they all have to routinely sync up their memories to a database called the Cytus, which stores human memories and emotions in the form of music. And fun fact, Cytus is also a play on the word co-Cytus, which is the name of the the river of the underworld in Greek mythology. Oh god, I'm giving myself switching on the projector vibes now. The story then follows Vanessa, an operator who walks around a wasteland being sad for a few chapters until everything's happy in the end and Cytus II comes along screaming about how great the internet is.
Oh Jesus, it's just got everything on there.
Is it a good story? Kinda, but not because of Alpha. One of Alpha's biggest implementations was more story content to flesh things out compared to the more vague and implied presentation of the mobile original. And so as you clear chapters, you unlock text documents from in-universe elements like advertisements, poems, and research papers exclusive to the remaster and riddled with spelling and grammatical errors because localization is hard. And I think it does well in terms of retroactively making the events of the story more clear and setting the finer details, but whether these additional elements are fun to read or were needed in the first place to anyone other than lore nerds from C2 who want their theories confirmed is the question. The original Cytus didn't actually have a story until its 2.0 update just a few months later through the hidden Cytus Alive tracks, Easter egg charts which are only accessible by tapping on the difficulty completion tallies on the chapter select screen. An album where each chapter has its own original theme that occasionally cuts to a drip feed of story content partway through the chart. Considering the simplicity of not just the premise but rhythm games as a genre, I honestly think playing through the Cytus Alive album is a much better way to enjoy the game's story over shuffling through a deluge of poorly translated text. It's a less detailed and more vague way of approaching a story when it comes to understanding the lore, but not only is lore arguably the least important element of any writing, but Cytus Alive's existence meant that not only was the story not interrupting the rhythm gameplay, but it allowed the premise to thrive as an emotional background that added context to the gameplay, and without spoiling anything, I think this is also where Demo thrived in its storytelling, but Cytus II and Voice kind of waded around. The final song in Demo's story is a slow and emotional piece that in-universe kickstarts the final events of the game's small-scale but very personal story because the piano plays a functional narrative role. Cytus II had you stop playing the game to rummage through forum posts about a mildly related global conspiracy and then play a level 14 boss chart that had basically zero intrigue or emotional weight to attach itself to. Cytus II isn't that investing narratively as Demo and Cytus I because the gameplay and story are just far too detached to be meaningful. To contrast, this is Cytus I's Alive chart in Chapter 3, this is the chart in Chapter 7, and this is the chart in Chapter 9. And you glean from the earlier chapters as you play that this chart you're accessing is the memory itself. The gestures and tone of the song express the memories and emotions Vanessa was feeling at this point in time. It's a much more vague form of storytelling, but it's much more emotionally powerful, atmospheric, and involving given the story's premise and the nature of rhythm games, because story and gameplay need to mesh and complement each other. So I'd say the additional story elements of Alpha aren't really needed, that enjoyable to sift through, or worth buying for the game alone, but as Cytus I already had the perfect story content to begin with, it's not much of a deal breaker. I'd honestly recommend just leaving the additional stuff for when you've finished and experience the story with just the Alive tracks. I think we can safely determine you're deeply disturbed if you went into a rhythm game for the story, so how about that delicious gameplay? Cytus makes use of the scan line system. A judgment line swings up and down as the music plays, notes will appear on the field, and you've just got to press the note the moment the line crosses over its center, using the colors of the note to determine which direction the line should swing in before you tap. Add in hold notes, where you fill a meter, and sliders, where you drag along a fixed path, and you're all sorted. It's kind of like a rhythm game where you're playing a launchpad, and with the setup of these songs being files in an expansive database, it just feels awesome clambering all over the place like you're a hacker uncovering some deadly secret. Starting small with the occasional tap before 5 hours later getting stuck into, what in the name of Overcharted is this? If you've already played the original Cytus, everything is still intact in Alpha's gameplay with no new mechanics or major adjustments. In fact, if you're a returning player and most of your experience with the series is from Chaos Mode on Cytus II, it's possible that Alpha has very little to show for you as Rayok's first game, with early game charts being rather simplistic and being reworked and releveled numerous times over. Shout out to the level 9 Liberami squad. Add in the level scaling only going up to 9, and easy and hard being the only two difficulty modes, and I'd say as an intermediate player that the game only starts to get challenging by about chapter 7, so Alpha's not exactly the game for every Cytus player. But if you are a returning player, you'll be pleased to know that Alpha's minimal change to the mechanics also means that any techniques you've learned from your time in C1 have also been preserved. Judgment timing is still as lenient as it was in the original, with none of the stubbornness from C2. Holds can be perfected without direct touch, meaning that not only can you just slide your finger over a hold, but you can hold it down before the line crosses over it. And slider judgment is still determined by indirect touch on the connector joints, meaning not only can you just individually tap the joints as if they were separate tap notes, but if there's something like a zigzag slider, you can clear it no problem by just holding 2 fingers on the screen and sliding down over the joints, and it will still count. Alpha has been a spot of worry for a lot of veteran players, simply because out of Rayok's 3 main rhythm games, Cytus is the most demanding with regards to input, as you're tapping all over the screen with a variety of gestures. And as such, it's highly recommended by others that the game is played on a larger display like an iPad with every digit you have, rather than just playing on your phone with your thumbs. And there's been a lot of wonder from people, myself included, about if Cytus would be able to make that graceful transition to something as tiny as the Switch, but honestly, not only does Cytus feel fine to play on here, but it's way more comfortable and precise than playing Demo and Voice. Demo and Voice are simplistic falling note rhythm games where you only tap the bottom of the screen, but it means that on the Switch display the games feel much more cramped with less space to work with, especially in Voice where the detection zones of the lanes are determined by their visual width, so they can be ridiculously narrow and bunched together depending on the chart. As Cytus makes use of the entire screen with these big round buttons to push, it's actually one of the more comfortable touch rhythm games on the system right now, especially with Alpha's inclusion of the note size option from C2 where you can make the notes bigger and smaller to help with readability and detection. Plus, the Switch's smaller display I feel has encouraged me to be way more precise and intentional with my inputs, as the larger amount of surface area covered by a small amount of digits makes me feel less inclined to just spam my entire hand across the screen and hope for the best like I could on my iPad. So I do think playing on the Switch means I can play with both hands comfortably, but it's given me limitations that have actually made the game more engaging to play. My only real problem is just a structural issue with the Switch, where it's frictionless as all hell, making it susceptible to slide around on desks and laps the world over. This is extremely wishful thinking, but for playing games like these on Switch, I would be so grateful if a third-party peripheral manufacturer were to make a case or harness for the tablet on its own, kind of like the iPad's polyurethane smart covers, just to give the back of the system some more grip to keep it in place. There's also the thing a lot of people don't really like talking about, which is the fact that for a good chunk, Cytus 1 gets stupid easy because the judgment timing is extremely lenient, throwing out perfects like there's a bad recession going on. Which is why over time the charts made more of a focus on complex patterns that make the notes hard to read and hit in the first place, let alone getting them with the right timing, which works well for the gameplay format. Again, it's a lot better than C2, which has the pickiest hit detection in the world, so you end up missing things that you totally hit. Cytus is a rhythm game about agility, not precision, and should stay that way. So C1's gameplay does end up working on Switch a lot better than people were expecting. And there's always the good old TP or technical point system for those who would like to give themselves more of a challenge because they hate being happy. For those who don't know, Cytus evaluates your score based on the judgments of perfect, good, bad, and miss, and if you clear a chart in one clean combo with only perfects, you'll be rewarded the highest possible score of 1,000,000. That isn't the end game though, because there are actually 2 types of perfects the game cheekily doesn't tell you about. Color perfects, which are when you hit the note at exactly the right time with 100% accuracy, and black perfects, which are ever so slightly off, but not off time enough to drop you down to a good, equating to 70% accuracy. Black perfects don't disrupt your combo, allowing you to still get 1,000,000 master grade, but they will disrupt your technical point accuracy. So the true highest score you can get in Cytus is to not only get 1,000,000 master with just perfects, but to get 100% TP with only color perfects. Cytus Alpha's mechanics have just enough to keep you occupied if you feel like going for 100% completion, thanks to preserving the depth of its original. And the real test is seeing which is going to break first, the game or you. And do you think we're done talking about the controls and mechanics? No, because we need to talk about the little ugly cousin Rayok's been putting into their games as of late. Nah, it's okay, you can come out, come on. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Kinda obvious at this point, but with Cytus, Demo, and Voice all originating as mobile games, they were made with touch controls in mind. In fact, back when they first launched, Demo and Voice were the first Switch games to be handheld mode only, requiring the player take their system out of the dock to use the touchscreen. But for some reason, pulling your Switch out of the dock was such a Herculean feat that a very small subset of the internet lost its collective shit when Voice was announced, talking about how it's false advertising, how it goes against the selling point of the Switch, and even fucking hand-wringing about how it sets a grim precedent precedent that would allow someone to publish a TV mode-only Switch game. Guys, come on, I know you're Nintendo fans, but there's only so much tinfoil I can hand out, you toe-sucking cunt. So now all of Rayok's rhythm games have controller support on the Switch versions, allowing you to play a touchscreen game using buttons and sticks, to varying degrees of success, from it's a little clunky but you just gotta mash fast to just tape down R and you win, with its only real use being so that people like me can finally get half-decent gameplay footage. So what about Cytus? Honestly, the best controller support in these games so far, but that's not exactly high praise. The D-pad and face buttons deal with taps and holds, and the bumpers and triggers deal with sliders, with the positioning and aiming all being done for you, only requiring that you keep yourself to the rhythm. Press the right buttons, and hope to god that the auto-lock behaves itself and doesn't bind the button you're just about to lift to the hold note with the hold tap combo. Ah! The immediate thing that hit me was just how much the tech I know from the touch controls would mess with my instincts, because once again, on touch, hold notes still give you perfects if you hold them down early, but on controller you need to hold them down the moment the scan line crosses over. Same thing with sliders. This isn't like the sliders in Demo where you can just tape R down, and you're actually required to press the bumper down the moment the scan line crosses with the starting note of the slider. This then means if you're met with a very slider-heavy chart, you're going to be dancing between L and R until the end of time. The end of time being how long it feels mentally to play an L song. So which controller should you use when you're going down this route? The Pro controller is just a straight up no from me, simply because the D-pad sucks ass and keeps reading double inputs from me, messing up my combo. So I've been finding it much more consistent to play with the Joy-Cons. Only problem being that the Joy-Cons have a very cheap build quality to them, and I mean, have you played rhythm games with Joy-Cons? Those things break so easily. And yes, I have played with the GameCube controller. I even made my own grip because the D-pad's really tiny. I call it the Alpha grip for alpha males, where you put your left thumb on B and your right thumb on A for taps and holds, then you just put your right index and left middle finger on L and Z for the sliders. This is actually more comfortable for playing harder charts instead of just holding it normally. I am not kidding. So the controller support in Alpha has been a surprisingly refreshing way to play Cytus that has made replaying all the earlier chapters that little bit more interesting, but obviously it gets a little clunky once you start playing level 7s or higher, and I cannot recommend playing with the touch controls enough if this is your first time. Please, I am begging you, play with the touch controls. The game was actually designed for them. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. Overall, the controller support exists with varying results, but it's a little better than I was expecting, and I'm especially happy if it's there as an accessibility option to allow more people to enjoy the game their way. And it means you get funny tirades from the purists.
It is kind of unfair to the Android and iOS players of Demo, especially on Wings of Piano, wherein it is hard that you need to slide your fingers to get the last part, but in Switch you just need to hold it the R or yell. Also unlimited charming notes in Switch, but on Android and iOS if you're too early or late you will get blue or green notes. It is very unfair.
God damn it, what is it about these games that make them attractive to dipshits? I mean, I know I'm a dipshit, but at least I'm a self-aware dipshit, you know? But it's the life of a dipshit. You unite, but you also compete with fellow dipshits, and that's where Alpha comes in with another exclusive feature. Dipshit matching, because for some reason they really want to push Cytus as an esport now. Essentially the multiplayer mode, where you can either choose a song in the normal arcade mode, or you can have a song picked at random within a chosen level range, and the game will try to match you with two other dipshits to compete for the highest score. And it's basically a cool concept rushed out the door for something that's not really worth using at all. The main use of matching is that getting a certain amount of wins lets you unlock chapters faster, but in the grand scheme of things, it's better to just get the required amount of points through the single player anyway, because it takes longer, but at least then I'm choosing the songs that I want to play, and I'm not just waiting around to match with two other dipshits as all three of us dipshits get 1,000,000 points in a song that only one of us dipshits actually likes. And it's always an L song for some reason. Can we stop picking these?
Did that sound familiar to you? Because that sounds really familiar to me.
There's only two real areas where I'd modify matching to make it a little more engaging. One, I'd much rather prefer if the game went with a traditional ELO system you find in other games instead of just counting how many wins you've achieved in your lifetime. Like, what about a system similar to Puyo Puyo Tetris, where everyone starts at something like 2,000, and that number increases and decreases depending on your position, which in turn affects the opponents you're up against and the level of the charts. It'd be a little hard to implement into a rhythm game, as the varying easy and hard charts would make it exploitable, and it's not exactly a zero-sum game. But I do think it'd add a little bit more longevity to the idea of versus Cytus, especially if higher ranks were to have a decay that requires that high-ranking players win matches frequently, instead of just stacking up hundreds of lifetime wins so they can sit comfortably. And two, it feels like a weirdly missed opportunity not to have private games with friends. Demo the Last Recital actually had a versus and a co-op mode over local ad hoc. And while I never played it myself, multiplayer rhythm games like Os and Taiko no Tatsujin have shown me just how fun playing rhythm games alongside friends and family can be, be. Like, you could have the versus mode, and then what about a co-op mode with exclusive charts, or a tag mode where one player has to take over for another every time the scan line bounces up and down? It's just something that, again, I feel like would have been a cute addition that sells me more on the idea of multiplayer Cytus, and it feels like kind of a no-brainer that makes matching look really malnourished and lame as a game mode, especially considering you need Nintendo Switch Online to play it, a service that's already a pretty insulting rip-off to begin with.
Boy, I don't know about you guys, but I love paying £20 a year so that I can use a peer-to-peer fucking connection.
I see some immense room for improvement that could lead to it turning into the main thing that keeps me coming back, but for now, matching kind of feels like an afterthought that I'm not going to be touching past getting footage of it. Okay, we get it, Joe. Alpha's neat and everything because you're super stubborn and nostalgic and you're so handsome. Is that a 9S replica choker? Man, you're really rocking that twunk energy, aren't you? But think about my perspective for once. What about content? And should I get Alpha above any other Cytus game I can get right now? Essentially, how is the overall package as a product? And my answer to that is depending on your situation, because Alpha's kind of in that cozy in-between remasters often land in, where you may as well get it for what it offers, and it is worth the price and investment, but at the same time there's nothing wrong with giving it a pass and sticking to the original game. So let's crunch the numbers and break down which version gives you what. So we have Cytus Alpha on Switch, and we have the original Cytus on iOS. Android's a little different because it uses a free-to-play demo model with a cooldown timer, but for this example we have Cytus on iOS. The original game on iOS is $199 GBP up front and sells additional DLC separately. Through a promotional event called the Million Downloads Plan, Rayart gradually re-released DLC packs for free the more sales the game got up front, which means now the game has reached 1 million sales, late adopters like yourself can get a bucket load of content for the upfront cost, totaling to somewhere within the ballpark of 150 songs from 13 packs, the story chapters 1 to 10 and 3 side chapters, Symphony, Night, and Million. The rest of the game's packs are still paid, varying from $3.99 to $9.99 depending on their song count, with Prologue, Retro, Timeline, Demo, L, and Night Keepers, and are entirely optional. When it's all tallied up, getting Cytus on iOS today and then buying all of the available in-app purchases totals to a modest $35.93 with 19 packs of 211 songs, excluding Chapter L's 10 bonus charts because I don't count them. So let's look at Cytus Alpha for comparison. Alpha structures itself with all 19 packs with the 10 story chapters played in order, and the DLCs being unlocked through passing a set amount of songs in the story chapter it's linked to, or by having a certain amount of wins in matching, and costs $44.99 up front, a difference of £9.06. There's also controller support, additional story elements, and multiplayer, but attaching monetary value to that would be kinda silly, so Alpha also includes 2 exclusive song packs. A collaborative DJ Max pack available from the get-go, and Chapter Omega, which is unlocked through Chapter 10, a pack containing songs from the now cancelled Cytus Omega arcade game. These 2 packs contain 20 extra songs in total, and if we use Rayart's pricing structure in the original Cytus as a reference point, wherein the packs containing 10 songs are usually priced at $4.99, this means that Alpha includes an extra $9.98 of bonus content. Add that onto the $35.93 it costs to get the game on iOS, with all of its content, and we can conclude that by Rayart standard, Cytus Alpha contains $45.91 worth of content, with 21 packs of 231 songs. Fuck me, that took so long to count, not only because of the bonus L charts of the exact same song screwing with the calculation, but Alpha says 235 on its stat page for some reason, and the tallies on the chapters don't account for Night and L's charts that are locked, so I may be completely wrong on this anyway, the things I do for you. The point is, you still get a ton of content no matter which version you buy, and subjectivity and value aside, Cytus Alpha is at least priced consistently through its bonus content, and feels in line with how much it costs to purchase the game on mobile. And I can safely say the £45 for Alpha is worth it, not only for getting all of this content and introducing me to some great tracks on packs that I never bothered to buy like Retro, but DJ Max and Omega are an amazing time, and songs like Blythe, Don't Die, and Reincarnation have what are hands down the most fun Cytus charts I've played in years. I'm also really into the progression system Alpha has, where you only have access to Chapter 1 and DJ Max, and you have to unlock everything else by just clearing a certain amount of songs. It's a bit of a pain if you're a returning player, and I'm usually really put off by progression systems in rhythm games and just prefer to have all the songs and difficulties from the get-go, but it works here because hard mode is immediately accessible. Once you unlock a chapter, you have every song it has to choose from. It ensures new players are getting a good learning curve due to the immense amount of songs, and most important of all, it accomplishes the intended effect mobile players experience with the original game's post-launch support, like the anniversary crossover pack Chapter Million, which is filled with callbacks and references to older tracks, and as such is only unlocked by first clearing a certain amount of songs in Chapter 9. Crossover songs like The Sacred Story are so perfect, they're the highlights of the Cytus series, but it's so much more enjoyable when the game's structure is ensuring that you actually played Sanctity, Sacred, Psyker, and the Riddle story beforehand. And it's still an infinitely better progression system than the tree in Demo and the XP system in Cytus II. So in short, if you just want to try out the game on the cheap or on the largest tablet you've got, you're fine sticking to the mobile version, but if you want your time with Cytus to be a complete experience you can play on your dedicated handheld with that lovely extra bit of content and polish, Alpha is very much a viable package, and I don't think the game's a rip-off in any sense of the term. I'm just amazed that it's £45, because games that cost more than £45 are bullshit that shouldn't exist, and, well, bullshit is something ReArch likes doing.
Just because a song costs $1 on iTunes doesn't mean a game should be priced to its content amount, you tools.
So to wrap up this look at Alpha, I'm just gonna start quick-firing a bunch of other points and thoughts that I picked up from my time with the game that I couldn't really fit into any of the prior sections, or were a little on the nitpicky side. I like the slight change in direction made with the visuals, but it's not my favourite depiction. Alpha still looks like the original Cytus in a lot of ways, but opted for a bit more of a bright, flat, and digital approach compared to the bold, shaded H.R. Geiger feel the original game had. I still prefer the original style way more though, because I think it had more energy and colour. This is also why I wasn't really fond of C2's visual direction either. Since Cytus II, everything in the series is starting to look way more flat, washed out and grungy due to dropping its much more colourful and shaded approach. Okay, but real talk, wouldn't it be the coolest shit ever if there was like a cosmetic system in the game where you could choose which visual style from the series you want to play with? Just saying. Alpha is the smoothest Cytus has been for me, running at a far more consistent frame rate than any top-of-the-line mobile or tablet I've used. The UI is a little stuttery when using the touch controls, and it does have a tendency to have the occasional frame dip if you've been playing for too long, but that's immediately fixed by just restarting the game, and it rarely interrupts the gameplay. Once beating the game and unlocking all the chapters, I would have loved to see the implementation of a universal song list that shows every track sorted in alphabetical and level order, similar to Voice and La Nota. The chapter system is fine when playing for the first time, but once you're finished, even as someone who knows where every song is by memory, scrolling through chapters and getting the whole artwork, song, and dance while browsing can get pretty clunky and cumbersome. As I said before, Cytus Alive makes a return in Alpha, but a little nitpick of mine is, like the original game, there's no way to tell what your high score is in the Alive track, and it makes keeping track of million masters kind of annoying in that area. Hidden tracks are alive and well in Alpha, remixes and continuation pieces you can unlock by interacting with the artwork of certain songs, e.g. Chapter 1 has Ververge, which is level 7, but if you tap the torch in the artwork at its dimmest, you'll play Ververge version B Remix, which is a level 9. My only nitpick with the hidden songs right now, and by extension the Alive songs, is that their hidden nature means you need to use the touchscreen to access them every time, even when playing in the dock with a controller. So this is more of a universal Switch problem, but I'd love to see a digital pointer function similar to the PlayStation TV in future. Alpha has the combo indicator from C2, so you can tell if you're getting a million master or even a full combo, but for the sanity of others, I'd love for a 100% TP indicator that goes out when you get a black perfect to get patched into the game sometime. As someone who was really hyped to play it, Cathedral's hard chart is a little on the weak side, and I'd say is more of a level 8 than a level 9, because it doesn't really do the instrumentation of Star and Ice justice as well as charts like the Ricochet. But despite that, Cathedral is still one of the best damn songs in the Cytus franchise right now, and it makes me even more bummed out that Star didn't stick around as a main music producer for Cytus 2. Kiva's alright, I mean Qualia and Genesis are still their best works, but you just can't beat how well Star's form of music fits with the chaotic and hopeless dystopian theming of Cytus. No, I promise, I'm not doing another AMV cutaway. No, I swear! Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, this game sets off a lot of suppressed cybergoth feelings. And lastly, as of writing this script, the worldwide highest score for Freedom Dive is a million master with 99.78 TP with a controller. I am very concerned for you people. To close out, Cytus Alpha is the best Cytus has been in a long while, which is saying a lot because it's a remaster. ReArch should start only making console games because it encourages them to be bastards a bit less to their customers, and you should support my Patreon as I'm the one true ReArch fan. Yeah, I'm still god-awful at ending videos. Later, nerds. Love you!